they race to the line, and thanks be to Nye's magnetic charm.
Well, hello and welcome along to day 5 of Royal Ascot for 2020 here on the Singapore Horse Racing Channel. I do hope you enjoyed all the action and the coverage so far, and one more day still to come from the Berkshire venue. And we've got 8 races coming up on the programme for you. A little bit earlier start time, 7:40 start time here in Singapore. That's 12:40 back in the UK. But we do have an additional race for you, so an extra opportunity there to get that little bit more value on the Singapore pools, which have been returning at some very nice returns compared to some of the industry returns back in the UK, etc. So looking forward to trying to find a few winners here for day number 5. The ground, I think, has eased a little bit. It was a rather drying day yesterday, but it's still going to be quite testing, I feel, over there at Ascot for all partaking. Just reflecting on yesterday, the feature Commonwealth Cup was won by Golden Horde for Clive Cox and Adam Kirby. That was a brilliant performance there from that 3-year-old, and I think he's got a big future. Clive Cox, ex-jump jockey, very, very capable trainer, and knows what it takes to win with the speedsters, and a good ride there from Adam Kirby as well. Fanny Logan won the Hardwick Stakes for Frankie Dettori and John Gosden, bringing up the rider's 70th Royal Ascot winner. And in turn, when the riders and the trainers get to those sort of landmarks, they get gifted a saddlecloth with the number. So a number 71 for Frankie. And that will actually be auctioned off for NHS charities back home. So a lovely gesture there from Frankie. And all the riders today, in fact, will be donating their riding fees. So around about 100 horses or so running, I believe. And that's quite a bit of money going to healthcare workers and charities there. So very well done to all the jockeys there. A couple of the 2-year-olds that were successful. The Learjet was very good in the Norfolk. Dandala winning for Nick Bradley Racing, and a first Royal Ascot winner for Ben Curtis, who's been making hay on the all-weather for many a year. And the Vars, well, our best bet came up in the Vars. That was Berkshire Rocco, who ran second to Santiago. Good friend Jeremy Cozzi was on last night, and he sort of said, how disappointing Berkshire Rocco, but a good run in defeat nevertheless. And Jeremy, I certainly agree with you there. Berkshire Rocco was very good in defeat, but the winner just too good in the end. So we'll try and go one better today for everybody that is interested in the racing, and especially here in Singapore, that may well be having a bet and watching the racing on the Racing Channel. To say, we started a little bit earlier. 8 races. My first bet on the programme comes up in the Queen Mary Race 2. There's a horse called Sacred in here for William Haggis and James Doyle, owned by the Cheveley Park operation. She was a winner at Newmarket on her debut. She had a good attitude. Now, the ground was quicker that day. The ground's obviously going to be slower today, and it's going to be slower ground for a lot of these 2-year-olds because they haven't had much experience. But she was pretty good, more beautiful. Will probably be a big danger to Aidan O'Brien's filly, who done nothing wrong on debut and winning. And Wesley Ward's got a couple in the race as well. Capanella, one of those in here. But I did think Sacred was a nice chance, and if she handles the ground, I think she'll go very well indeed. So that's the 8:15 the Queen Mary. The 850, the Coventry Stakes. I like a horse in it called Admiral Nelson. Now, I watched his debut win. He was quite extraordinary, to be honest with you. He travelled like the wrath of God in behind the pace, and when eventually asked to go and win the race, he won it well and was pretty impressive. Look, he looks the real deal. Aidan O'Brien's got a great record in this race, the Coventry Stakes. He's won it with some absolute superstars down through the years. Carder would probably be his main threat. He absolutely bolted up at Newbury recently as well. He should obviously come on for that, as many of these would, and I think those two can fight it out. But I'd just side with Admiral Nelson in that race. I really do like him there, Admiral Nelson. My third bet, and I really do like this horse, and I'm actually going to make this my best bet of the day. This is the one I'm strongest on. This is Alpine Star for Jesse Harrington in the Coronation Stakes, a half-sister to Alpha Centauri, who won this race a couple of years ago for the Niarchos family, and this horse carrying the same colours. will handle the ground. Ground will be no issue. And interesting form notes on this horse. When winning the debutant stakes on her final outing last year, she actually had a couple behind her, in fact, who have obviously run very well in classics since. Notably Love, who was 5th, has won the English 1,000 guineas, and So Wonderful was 3rd in the Irish equivalent. She was 4th that day. And on her second run, if you go a little bit further back, she beat Santiago, who won the Vase yesterday. So form's rock solid there. She's been well back. There's been a bit of money for her back in England as well. Frankie Dettori riding for Jessie Harrington. I think it's a sort of a potent combination, shall we say, for a big run from Alpine Star. So I like her a lot. That's the 9:25, the Coronation Stakes, a day in which we play host to 3 Group 1s to conclude the meeting. The 10 o'clock, the St James Palace for the 3-year-olds over the mile. Pinatubo for me in this one. I think he can certainly go a few places better than his Guineas finishing position of 3rd. I feel that maybe 1 or 2 people have written him off a little bit just for one defeat. I know he was unbeaten last year as a juvenile, looked very good. He was magnificent, really. But it's far too early to say, you know, he's gone backwards or he's not the horse he was, because that was his first run of the year. I think he'll come on a ton for it. I had a look at the replay again this morning, and to be honest, look, he wasn't beaten all that far. The horses ahead of him are very, very good horses indeed. He reopposes with Cheetah this time around. Palace Pier, another one in the race. They're having won on the all-weather at Newcastle. Clearly connection thinking no Derby for him. John Gosden has gone on record as saying he wouldn't get 1.5 miles in a horse box. So a mile for him. He's looked impressive. He could be a real up-and-comer for sure. But Pinatubo, for me, I like him a lot in this. And I think we will see the real Pinatubo this afternoon or this evening if you're in Singapore at Ascot. And one man I know that quite likes him as well is a good friend over in Australia, Brad Wells. Has been keen on this horse for a wee while, and Brad, I hope if you're backing him today, then he's successful for you for sure. So they're my 4 top picks. Obviously, we were very fortunate yesterday in the last to have pinpointed Scarlet Dragon, who managed to win at 33-1. I was rather pleased with that towards the end of the card for sure. Hard to replicate that this afternoon over at Ascot, but the one horse I do like at odds, and my each way pick for the day will be the Tin Man in the big sprint, the Diamond Jubilee at 10:35. Not the force of old. He's an 8-year-old nowadays, but he's a classy horse. He's won this race previously. He's around about 12 or 14-1 back in England, and I think if you can get around about that sort of odds, or he'll run a race for you for sure. The Tin Man, winless last year, but he's a good horse, and the conditions won't inconvenience him any at all. So the Tin Man for me at a bit of value here at Ascot for day 5. So my best bets on the card, the 8:15, the Queen Mary. I'm going with Sacred in that race for the 2-year-old fillies. The 8:50, the Coventry, Admiral Nelson, I think is an absolute flying machine, and I think he'll go extremely close to winning that for sure. I like him a lot. 9:25, the Coronation Stakes, Alpine Star for Frankie Dettori and Jessica Harrington. I think she's got extra strong form claims, and she looks a very nice horse going forward, and Jessie certainly knows the time of day. Won this race with the half-sister Alpha Centauri a few years ago. And Pinatubo in the St James's Palace, I think will win that. His Guineas 3rd was not the worst run in the world, and he can certainly go a few places better today at Ascot. So the final day coming up of the Royal Meeting. Once again, just to thank everyone back at Cranji, all of our producers and our editors, and all the team back there that are staying up late at work to bring the coverage to you on Channel 88, the Singapore Horse Racing channel. And do remember, with Singapore Pools, you're getting a nice bit of value as well. Some of these horses returning at much bigger odds than what they have been doing back in the UK. So certainly worth having a little bit of an interest on day 5 of Royal Ascot. The first race not too far away from us. Plenty of handicaps on the day. We start with the Consolation Wokingham coming up at 7:40 local time. Sit back, enjoy the coverage once again. Day 5 of Royal Ascot coming your way here on the Singapore Horse Racing channel. Thanks for your company throughout the week, and we do hope you're very successful here on the final day of Royal Ascot.